Hi everybody, welcome back to RecSport Education. I'm Ryan Shanahan, and joining us today to help us out is the beautiful Xiaoting.
Hi, 大家好.
We're going to be working on the 12 principles of a proper sit-up today. Now for many of you, you're probably thinking, 12 principles for a sit-up? Really? This is an extension of our last video, which was on principles of conditioning. But since there is so much information, I thought it would be appropriate to do a special video just covering these principles. So to get us started off, principle number 1 is having an awareness of the muscles you're working with. As you get to know the muscle groups that you're working with, you'll have naturally more power because you'll be using less stabilization muscles to compensate. Now number 2 is simply that as you become more aware of these muscles, you're more stable and you're strong at center, this is going to allow you to use less energy because you're more efficient. And using less energy to accomplish the same amount of work is something we're always trying to do. Right? It's always better to do that. Now let's talk about number 3 real quick. These first few principles are really just discussion, getting an understanding of why we need to have a strong core and the benefits of it. The third principle I want to cover is specifically directed towards ectomorphs. And what that means is somebody with a narrow body. So like myself, for example, I have a pretty narrow side. Xiaoting here, she has a pretty narrow side as well. What this means is you actually have less room for your lungs, though, to travel. So as you're doing your crunches, you're working your core muscles, you need to make sure that you're focusing on the breath and you're breathing very regularly and taking time to have full and complete breaths. All right, and this next principle I'm actually going to read to you. Principle number 4 involves appropriate exercise for the muscle, meticulous technique, adequate muscle overload, formatting your exercises. Now, it's not well understood, but most people who spend a lot of time working on their abdominal muscles end up spending a lot of time doing full range of motion crunches or a complete sit-up. And what's not understood is that 2/3 of that exercise isn't working your abdominal muscles at all. It's working your hip flexors, more specifically your quadriceps in your upper leg and thigh. So I'm going to teach you some techniques as we get into some of these other principles on how to overcome that and better isolate your abdominal muscles. Okay, now we're ready to get right into our exercises, and let's talk about our body positioning as we're doing these crunches. So, shall we?
Yeah.
Get started. All right, moving right along here, principle number 5 is having proper alignment. In this case, we're going for a posterior pelvic tilt. What that means is that the pelvis needs to be shifted backwards so that your lower back is more emphasized towards the ground. This is going to allow you to get more emphasis on your lower abs and a complete exercise from the top of the abdominal wall to the lower half. This is a part of working your abdominal muscles that most people miss. They end up working just this upper part of the abdominal wall and they forget about the lower abs. So having this posterior pelvic tilt goes a long way in giving you a better and all-around exercise for the abdominal wall. So then the last thing I want to emphasize about this technique is that it allows you to pull on both ends of the abdominal wall. All right, this next section is for what I like to call your whiz file. This gives you an idea of which muscles are being engaged through the process of a sit-up. So Xiaoting is going to start beginning a curl up into a low crunch. And as she does, the first muscles are engaged are these muscles here in the neck and upper chest. So we're going to move past that position and start engaging these upper abdominal walls. At about halfway up, as she's getting to this position, the obliques become engaged at about 40 to 50%, and the abs begin to work harder. So get up a little bit higher, there it is, nice. And right about 50% of spinal flexion, the quadriceps become engaged. So at the last half of your sit-up, just about, your legs are doing most of the work. We've taken the weight off of your abdominal wall.
Should I do again? Wow.
Sure, should we do that one more time?
You do a long time.
Yeah. All right, now I've got Xiaoting working on some light crunches. This is working the front of the abdominal wall. And this is actually one of the best exercises you can do to isolate this muscle group. When you're doing a small crunch like this, you're actually engaging 90 to 93% of your abs. The other parts of the other few percent that's left in there, the 10 to 7% left, is coming from the neck muscles, the upper chest, and a little bit of the muscles here in the obliques and quadriceps. Yeah, go ahead and do a full sit-up now. Now, as she's doing a full sit-up all the way up and back down, this is only engaging about 20, maybe 30% of the abdominal muscles. A lot of it's coming from the legs again. Most of the energy that we're utilizing here is coming from momentum. We get an initial burst to get up, and then the legs take over. Let me show that. So right here, go. Those are the abs, and right there, those are her legs. And then as she comes back down, we're engaging more of the muscle groups, especially in the lower abdominal region as she's on her way back down. But again, a lot of this is just momentum and then allowing gravity to take over, so we're not getting a very significant exercise for that muscle group. Okay, now we're ready for Principle 7, and this section is going to talk about the various types of muscle contractions we can engage in. We have isometric, concentric, and eccentric contractions. And we're going to show you a range of exercises that will allow you to work on each of those different kinds of contractions. So let's get started.
Okay.
An isometric exercise is something we covered in our last video, but to reiterate, it's simply not allowing gravity to win or lose in your workout. Sustaining a controlled contraction in place can be a very effective and very difficult exercise. Let's just leave her here a little bit longer to make everything a little worse. And there it is. These next few exercises can be done as a concentric muscle contraction. However, in this case, I'm actually trying to showcase the value of the eccentric contraction. Eccentric contractions are any time you're allowing gravity to take over. So we may use a concentric contraction initially, then we slowly allow gravity to take over. This is really excellent as a stabilization technique for many different kinds of exercises. Of course, concentric muscle contractions are the most popular, and there are quite a range of exercises you can incorporate to create an effective workout. Anytime you're exercising your core, when you can incorporate spinal rotation, you're going to add an extra layer to the overall workout. You're going to get much better conditioning from incorporating this type of technique. Play around with the exercises you already know and see what works best for you. Adding adequate overload to your lever is going to help you with your gains. You can do this with a weighted plate or with dumbbells. You should also experiment here with different things that work best for you. Remember, if it's not hard, you're not doing enough or you're not doing it right. An exercise is just that. It should challenge you. One way you can affect your overload is adding weights to your legs, for example. Bring your legs off the ground or even extending your arms. Adding weights to this position can be a nice challenge, but simply taking your arms and leg further away from center is usually enough to challenge most people. So how are you feeling so far after that workout?
Really good.
All right. Let's talk about principle number 10, recovery. Of course, recovery is one of the most important aspects of any workout regime. What you have to understand is that if you're not resting a proper amount of time between sets, you're really only working your endurance level, not so much your muscle strength. So give yourself plenty of time, several minutes between sets, and then return to your exercise, and you'll get much better results that way. Principle number 11. This has to do with your stabilization exercises. It's about finding the exercises that stabilize the core while your body is moving. This, of course, will help you get a better understanding of that muscle group and how to activate it. In-outs, bell swings, inverted V-ups, and bicycles are good examples of stabilization exercises. All right, we've made it to the end of our list. This is principle number 12. There's a little bit of information here for it, so I'm going to read it off for you to make sure we have it all concisely. Number 12, technique and kinesthetic awareness. This means you should never compromise your technique for one more rep. It's better to stop where you're at and get the full benefit of proper technique rather than sacrifice that and go for any extra sets. Also, remember your principle of slow and controlled. Don't use momentum. You'll want to watch out for fast crunches and anything that is taking away from the isolation of your abdominal wall and putting the emphasis on muscle groups such as your hip flexors or your neck and chest muscles. The double leg lift is a popular exercise for the lower abdominals, but we really wouldn't recommend it. The double leg lift tends to put a lot of excess pressure on the lower back muscles as it pulls the psoas muscle. This can cause pressure and displacement on the vertebrae of your lower spine. This is especially dangerous exercise for anyone with a back injury, so watch out for that. A good alternative, however, would be scissor kicks. It puts less pressure on the psoas, and so it pulls less on the vertebrae. All right, and that concludes our 12 principles of a proper sit-up. So did you have fun today?
Yes, really fun.
I hope you guys had fun learning about these too. Take some time, go over this video several times, and see if you can implement these principles even one at a time over the course of your workout regime so that you can internalize them and practice them regularly from here on out. In the meantime, check out the videos on the rest of the channel, and I'll see you next time.
Bye!
Oh, and be sure to like and subscribe and share this video with your friends.